Georgia is a country that is extremely lively in its transformation. And we got a call about 3.5 years ago from the government for a possible project. That one did never happen, but a certain kind of discussion, exchange did start. And step by step, we did a lot of mostly very small projects, but it became kind of an acupuncturing of Georgia. And all the spots that you see here are possible sites or already existing sites where we did projects. The first one happened without us knowing it. So it was a little bit of a bumpy start. This is a proposal we did, actually was one of 4 for a cafe sculpture, public sculpture in Tbilisi. And we never really heard from them back from them. And then at some point I got a call for maybe a possible other project. And while they talked to me, they said, and then you can come to the opening of this cafe. And I said, well, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, we built this cafe that you sent us. Basically, the renderings. They send us, we send them the renderings, actually 5 different renderings from 5 different designs. So I said, well, that's a little interesting. Since you want to become a Western country, there are certain copyright issues to consider. Okay, let me get back to you. So actually it was built without us knowing it. And even further, somebody liked it so much that they built a new facade next to the building. So the president, when I met the president the next time, he said, well, it's like a fake Rolex. It's kind of an honor, isn't it? And said, yeah, that's the way how you can look at it. So from then on, things went very smoothly. We were asked to redesign a proposal for the new checkpoint between Georgia and Turkey, which is here. So Georgia ends here. This is Turkey. Maybe one of the most beautiful sites we ever were asked to design something. And you see here a building that is not so much a division between 2 countries, but it's mostly a meeting point, or it's considered to be a place where you can actually rent spaces, where you can, of course, go and shop, but you can also use it as a conference center. And what happens, it's really on the waterfront that people are also using it as a beach. And the beach happened to be there before. So it's a really kind of lively space. It is, as much as it is, of course, a marker between the 2 countries, also something that opens up the relationship between the 2 countries. They're working on a much more fluent transition. Now you can just go with your passport and you don't need a visa anymore, actually you can go with your ID card. You don't even need a visa anymore as a Turkish Georgian citizen. So it's fascinating to see that somebody or a country considers their border stations as something for architecture and also something that has kind of a positive, different idea. I mean, Georgia is mostly also a transit country. There's hardly any, oil or anything else. It's a country with agriculture, but also it's an important transit country from Azerbaijan to the Black Sea in Europe or to Turkey. So transit architecture or architecture that you see going through the country is really something that's important. That's the way how you see and experience Georgia. So here are some of the impressions. You see the terraces, even the tower, of course, there's kind of an overlook, but also the terraces, you can go up and overlook the station, overlook the sea. You have the conference rooms actually on the roof above the checkpoints with a view onto the Black Sea. It's a real welcome sign to the country, or even like a goodbye, of course, as well. The other infrastructure is up here, and this was maybe the fastest project we ever built. 3 months from the first call to the realization of this airport. It's this building here, this is the runway. I got called in August, I still remember, August 25th, 2 years ago, and was opened on December 20th. It's a very small airport. It's 280 square meters. It is in a super small town called Mestia, which is up here, a UNESCO heritage site with all these old wooden towers. It's a site, a city, or kind of a region that also is kind of developed into a tourist dedication for hiking, for skiing, and so forth. And it's a really beautiful, kind of still very kind of intact city in Stavanica, which is in the Caucasus, in the high mountains of Caucasus. You have a Canadian airline that actually operates between Tbilisi and Mestia, but you can also fly from there to Batumi and actually swim in the lake, swim in the Black Sea, and then go up and ski. So it's very much about these different kind of landscapes that Georgia is offering on a very small territory, actually. There are also 2 more buildings in that city. It's the little town hall here, where you can also go and have a wedding, and the police station. And I'm still very impressed, even now that I look back, they are finished now maybe for about 12 months or so, or 10 months, that, somebody really takes care of like how a police station looks like. It's the idea of making the country into a contemporary country. The police supposedly, I don't want to be kind of the ambassador of Georgia, I'm not in that role, but it's incredible to see how much it changed and how much support it has with the young generation. Our period is gonna come to an end soon, I'm sure, but it was, or still is, a really interesting way to see how the city or the whole country actually changes. We built 2 rest stops along the highway that they're building now. They didn't have a highway so far. It's in Gori, the hometown of Stalin, and they're building, in the end, 20 of these rest stops along the highway. This is also an interesting strategy where these rest stops are sometimes built in areas where there is no highway yet, but they bring in infrastructure like a supermarket, a cultural space to also expose or show arts and crafts from the region. They bring basically an idea of the future to areas where there's still very kind of, not medieval, but very kind of old-fashioned lifestyle. And here you have some of these buildings, 2 of them, 2 stations already opened last November. And in this one, they already had like 2 or 3 requests. I don't know if that really happened or not, to have their marriage wedding celebrations in the rest stop. So a kind of strange story, or I guess kind of an honoring comment that you get from like the normal people who really are using these buildings in the end. In Tbilisi, we are working on a big villa, also a little bit obscure because I only met the client once for maybe 15 minutes. It also happens through like agents and other people. It's the building next to the President's Palace here. It is a villa that sits basically on top of this rock ridge overlooking the city. And I think we are, and I'm saying this, I think we are up here now with the construction. We only get once every maybe 2 or 3 months some pictures from the construction site. So it's a different way of working. Sometimes you're very much involved. They want a lot, from you. It also depends, of course, on the client. Sometimes you really have to fight for being involved. But compared to how sometimes little we are involved, the outcome is surprisingly good. So you never really know. It's a real adventure to build there. And this is like old images here. It's a screen, of course, that you project a lot on at this point. And the last project I'm showing you from Georgia is in Lasika. Lasika will be a new town for 500,000 people. It's a plan to build a city here. I think they just started to lay out the streets. I was there once where there was basically nothing yet. And one of the first signs for this new city is a marker. It's a sculpture in the Black Sea, a kind of 35-meter high sculpture on a pier that actually will become kind of, a point to go out, look back at the city along the water beach boulevard. And so here we are making some proposals and renderings. You already see the preparation work for the pier. It's a little further than this. I think the opening will be end of October, so there's a tight schedule for that one. It is made in steel, shipped from Turkey with boats to Lasika. And here are some wireframe images and renderings of the piece. Here again, you see some echo of what happened earlier in Metropole Parasol.
I actually had the pleasure of going through the custom building at the border. I was kind of taken aback. I was like, oh, that's that project. Here's my passport. And in particular to Georgia, and linking it back to that early project you showed with the numbers superimposed on each other, that installation, the thing that strikes me about Georgia that you didn't really address is their font, particular to their language, and I'm wondering if you could speak to if there is any connection between how successful you are in Georgia and the affinity of your, I'd say, your signature to their signature.
But the font is like the way how the writing is really amazing. We have actually a Georgian graphic designer who develops Latin writing, with the Georgian feel, and it says Georgia on the tower, but they didn't like it. I mean, we convinced the government to do it, and they finally did it, but it's now taken down. They want to replace it with like a normal, like more Latin writing, which is surprising to me because I think it has actually a nice kind of echo with the design and typography of or the types of the Georgian language. I think there's a certain, let's say, maybe pleasure of a sculptural understanding of space and shapes and forms and kind of culture, and maybe that's why our work echoes so well with the culture there. But it's only something I can assume. I don't know. And how was it going through the checkpoint?
Well, the Turkish one is, I mean, there's two buildings. The Turkish one is just like horrible, and you get yours. And I thought this is incredible. It's two different worlds.
Yeah, I couldn't go to the opening, unfortunately, but this would be like an opening with two presidents in one building, so yeah, I couldn't go.